That piercing sound of your phone notification. Your heart skips a beat. Time freezes. Your name appears on the screen. That name. The one person you swore would never affect you again. Your hands begin to tremble. Your mouth goes dry. Everything you've built, your confidence, your peace of mind, your carefully constructed emotional walls, suddenly stands on the edge of collapse. We've all felt that wave of overwhelming emotion crash over us without warning. The text from the ex who shattered your world. The email from the boss who never appreciated your sacrifices. The message that arrives like a ghost from your past, threatening to drag you back into darkness just when you'd finally found the light. And in that devastating moment of vulnerability, almost every one of us makes the same catastrophic mistake. A mistake so profound that the ancient Stoic philosophers dedicated their lives to conquering it. A mistake that continues to sabotage our relationships, our careers, our happiness, and our very freedom every single day. I made this mistake for decades. It cost me the love of my life. It destroyed business partnerships worth millions. It robbed me of countless nights of sleep and peace of mind. And I watched helplessly as the same mistake devastated the lives of those closest to me, until I discovered the life-changing Stoic practice I'm about to share with you. Think back to the last message that knocked the wind from your lungs, that made your stomach clench, that flooded your body with adrenaline or dread or fury or shame. What happened in the moments that followed? How did you respond? And how did that response alter the course of everything that came after? For most of my life, I was a prisoner to my emotional triggers. When that notification arrived, when those words appeared on my screen, I surrendered my power instantly. I let raw emotion dictate my fingers as they typed words I could never take back. I watched in horror as my wounded self took control, saying things my wiser self would never approve. The mistake that destroys lives is devastatingly simple: reacting instead of responding. Let me paint the vivid difference. Reacting is immediate, unconscious, and driven purely by emotion. It erupts from the primitive part of your brain, the same circuitry that would help you fight off a predator in the wild. When you react, you're essentially letting your ancient survival mechanisms control your modern communications. A reaction is the emotional equivalent of a reflex, automatic, unfiltered, and often regrettable. It's your wounded self speaking, your triggered self lashing out, your fear made manifest in words and actions you cannot undo. Responding, by contrast, is intentional, conscious, and aligned with your deepest values. It comes from the evolved part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex that gives you the uniquely human ability to choose. A response is your highest self speaking, your wisdom-finding voice, your true power expressed with clarity and intention. The gap between these two, between reaction and response, contains the secret to emotional freedom that the Stoics discovered over 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, and perhaps history's most powerful Stoic philosopher, wrote words in his private journal that changed my life forever. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let me share the exact moment I discovered the devastating cost of making this mistake. It was a crisp autumn morning 3 years ago. I had just poured my first cup of coffee when my phone lit up with a message from the investment partner who controlled the fate of my business. We had disagreed the previous day about the company's direction, but I thought we had reached a reasonable compromise. His message was 5 sentences long, but only one registered in my mind. I've lost confidence in your leadership. In an instant, my body flooded with a toxic cocktail of fear, anger, and shame. My face burned, my hands shook. Every cell in my being screamed at me to defend myself, to counterattack, to protect everything I had built. Without a moment's pause, I fired back a blistering response, questioning his judgment, reminding him of my sacrifices, subtly threatening to expose decisions he had made that our investors wouldn't approve of. I hit send and felt that momentary rush of righteousness that always accompanies a reaction born of wounded pride. 2 hours later, he called an emergency board meeting. 3 days later, I was removed as CEO of the company I had founded. 5 years of work, millions in potential value, my professional reputation, all sacrificed in the emotional inferno of those 5 minutes when I reacted instead of responded. It was in the depths of that loss that I discovered the Stoic practice of the pause, the sacred space between stimulus and response that contains our true power and freedom. Contrast that catastrophic reaction with an experience I had just 6 months ago. After rebuilding my career and founding a new venture, I received a scathing email from our largest client at 11:30 p.m. The subject line alone made my stomach drop. Serious concerns about moving forward. The email detailed their disappointment with our latest deliverable, questioned our expertise, and suggested they were considering terminating our contract, a contract that represented 60% of our company's revenue. Every instinct in my body urged me to defend our work immediately, to explain away their concerns, to place blame elsewhere, to react from that same place of fear and wounded pride that had cost me everything once before. But this time, something was different. This time, I knew the power of the Stoic pause. Instead of reaching for my keyboard, I closed my laptop. I silenced my phone. I walked outside into the cool night air and looked up at the stars. Those same stars that had witnessed Marcus Aurelius writing by candlelight about this very struggle 2 millennia ago. I took 10 slow, deliberate breaths. With each exhale, I felt the grip of fear loosening slightly. I reminded myself of the Stoic truth that had transformed my life. This email is not within my control. My response is. I slept on it. The next morning, I read the email again, this time not as a threat, but as information. I saw through my emotional haze to the legitimate concerns buried within their criticism. I recognized an opportunity where I had initially seen only danger. The response I crafted came not from fear, but from genuine curiosity and professional confidence. I acknowledged their concerns without defensiveness. I asked thoughtful questions to better understand their needs. I proposed specific solutions rather than excuses. The result? Not only did we save the contract, but 3 weeks later, that same client increased their engagement by 40%. The relationship is now stronger than ever, all because I avoided the catastrophic mistake of reacting rather than responding. This is the life-changing power of the Stoic pause, that sacred space between stimulus and response where your freedom lives. But how do we access this power in a world engineered to trigger instant reactions? How do we practice this pause when every notification, every message, every email seems designed to bypass our wisdom and target our emotional triggers? The ancient Stoics left us a blueprint that remains shockingly relevant in our digital age. First, you must recognize the physical symptoms of an emotional trigger. The Stoics were remarkably attentive to the body-mind connection. When a triggering message arrives, notice the immediate physical changes. The tightening in your chest, the flush of heat in your face, the shallow breathing, the racing heart. These physical sensations are the early warning system, giving you a precious moment to choose pause over reaction. As Epictetus taught his students, first tell yourself what kind of person you want to be, then do what you have to do. The moment you feel those physical symptoms, remind yourself, I want to be a person who responds with wisdom, not one who reacts from wound. Second, create physical distance between yourself and the triggering message. The Stoics understood that physical action reinforces mental discipline. Put your phone down, Close your laptop. Stand up and move your body. This physical interruption creates the space for your higher mind to regain control. Third, use conscious breathing to shift your physiological state. The Stoics practice specific breathing techniques to maintain equanimity in crisis. Take 5 deep breaths, inhaling for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, and exhaling for a count of 6. This pattern activates your parasympathetic nervous system, quieting the alarm bells of fight or flight that trigger reactive communication. Fourth, ask yourself the central Stoic question: what is within my control in this moment? You cannot control the message you received. You cannot control the sender's intentions, emotions, or expectations. You can control your interpretation of their words. You can control the timing of your response. Most importantly, you can control the version of yourself that crafts that response. As Epictetus wrote, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Fifth, visualize your highest self responding to this situation. The Stoics regularly practiced what modern psychologists call self-distancing, the mental technique of viewing yourself from the perspective of a wise observer. Imagine watching yourself receive this message from across the room. What would your wisest self advise? What response would make your future self proud rather than regretful? Let me share one more story that illustrates the transformative power of this practice. Last summer, as I was boarding a flight for a much-needed vacation, a notification appeared on my phone. It was from someone who had once been my closest friend before a misunderstanding tore us apart 3 years earlier. We hadn't spoken since that painful falling out. The message was simple: I miss you. I was wrong. Can we talk? My heart pounded in my chest. A storm of conflicting emotions swept through me. Tenderness, lingering hurt, hope, suspicion, longing, fear. The old me would have immediately fired back, either a coldly dismissive response or an emotionally vulnerable one, both reactions that would have bypassed my deeper wisdom. Instead, I turned off my phone for the entire flight. Those 5 hours became my Stoic pause. As the plane carried me through the clouds, I gave myself permission to feel all the emotions without acting on any of them. I remembered Seneca's wisdom: the greatest remedy for anger is delay. When I landed, I sat quietly in the terminal and asked myself, what virtue does this moment call for? The answer was clear. This moment called for courage, the courage to engage honestly without the armor of defensiveness. It called for temperance, responding with measured emotion rather than reactive intensity. It called for justice, seeing this person as they are now rather than frozen in past hurt. The response I eventually sent opened a dialogue that restored one of the most important relationships in my life, not through emotional reactivity, but through the wisdom that emerges in the pause. This is the power available to you in every triggering message you receive. This is the freedom that lives in the space between stimulus and response. Now you might be thinking, but what about situations that truly demand immediate attention? What about genuine emergencies or time-sensitive communications? The Stoics had profound insight here as well. As Seneca wrote, nothing is so oppressive as a man who is always serious and forever tense. The Stoic pause is not about rigid rules or arbitrary delays. It's about creating just enough space to ensure your response comes from wisdom rather than reactivity. Sometimes this might be a day, sometimes an hour, sometimes just 3 conscious breaths. The key is intentionality, making a conscious choice rather than being hijacked by emotional autopilot. Even in seemingly urgent situations, taking just 30 seconds to breathe and center yourself can dramatically transform the quality of your response and everything that follows from it. Let me share the exact practice I now use whenever I receive a message that triggers a strong emotional response. Step 1. I immediately place my phone face down or close my laptop. This physical action interrupts the reactive cycle and signals to my brain that I'm choosing pause over reaction. Step 2. I place one hand on my heart and take 3 deep breaths, feeling the rise and fall of my chest. This simple gesture activates self-compassion circuits in the brain and reminds me that I am not merely my reactive emotions. Step 3. I ask myself 3 questions. What is true in this moment? What is needed in this moment? Who do I want to be in this moment? These questions shift me from emotional reactivity to intentional response. Step 4. I wait. Sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, whatever the situation truly requires, rather than what my emotions demand. Step 5. When I finally craft my response, I do so with full presence and intention, asking myself, is this response aligned with my highest values? Would my future self thank me for communicating this way? This 5-step process has saved me from countless reactive mistakes. It has preserved relationships that would otherwise have been damaged or lost. It has created opportunities that would have been squandered. Above all, it has given me a profound sense of freedom. The freedom that comes from knowing that no message, no matter how triggering, can force me to surrender my power. Let me address the most common obstacles people face when trying to implement this practice. But won't people think I'm ignoring them if I don't respond immediately? The quality of your response matters far more than its speed. A thoughtful response sent later creates more trust than a reactive response sent immediately. If necessary, you can always send a brief acknowledgement. I've received your message and want to give it the thoughtful attention it deserves. I'll respond more fully tomorrow. But what if I forget to respond after taking time to pause? Create a simple system. I keep a dedicated note in my phone titled Pending Responses, where I immediately log any message requiring a Stoic pause. This ensures nothing falls through the cracks, while still giving me the freedom to respond from wisdom rather than reactivity. But I'm afraid I'll overthink my response if I wait too long. The Stoic pause is not about endless rumination or analysis paralysis. It's about creating just enough space for emotional regulation and value alignment. As Marcus Aurelius advised, never let the future disturb you. You will meet it if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. Now I want to share the most powerful insight the Stoics offer us about this practice. The pause is not merely a communication strategy, it's a philosophy of life. It's about recognizing that true freedom lies not in controlling what happens to us, but in controlling our responses to what happens. As Viktor Frankl, a modern thinker profoundly influenced by Stoicism, wrote after surviving the Nazi concentration camps, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This practice has transformed my life. It has saved relationships that seemed beyond repair. It has created professional opportunities that would have been forever lost. It has given me a profound sense of inner peace that no external circumstance, no message, no notification, no communication can disturb. I want to challenge you to try this practice for the next 7 days. When someone contacts you with information that triggers a strong emotional response, whether it's anger, anxiety, hurt, disappointment, or even excessive excitement, give yourself the gift of the Stoic pause before responding. It might feel uncomfortable at first. Our culture of immediacy has conditioned us to believe that faster is always better. The Stoics knew otherwise. As Seneca wrote, all cruelty springs from weakness. Our reactive communications often come from a place of emotional weakness rather than centered strength. The time you take to pause is never lost. It's invested in creating a wiser response and a better outcome. Imagine living with this level of emotional mastery. Imagine navigating your most challenging communications with grace and wisdom. Imagine maintaining your center regardless of what appears on your screen. This is the freedom the Stoics discovered centuries ago. This is the freedom available to you right now. The next time your phone lights up with that name, the one that makes your heart race, your palms sweat, your mind flood with emotion, remember, don't make the catastrophic mistake of reacting before you respond. Give yourself the gift of the Stoic pause. Create that sacred space between stimulus and response. In that space lies your power. In that space lies your freedom. In that space lives the person you're capable of becoming. Practice the art of the pause. It's available to you in every moment, with every notification, with every challenging communication that enters your life. As Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Be the person who responds from wisdom rather than reacts from wound. The ancient Stoics showed us the way. Now, the choice is yours.